record. Okay, sorry. So again, now that I'm recording, welcome everyone to our March TechByte. Today's topic is going to be on the Internet of Things and how Checkpoint can help you secure that, which some really cool cutting edge stuff. Now just really quick to make sure that everybody's on the same page. I want to go over 2 or 3 vocabulary terms that we're going to use here. And I think most people are kind of familiar with them, but just to keep it fresh. The first one, of course, is the Internet of Things, or IoT. IoT devices are physical objects with sensors, processing ability, software, other technologies that connect them and exchange data with other devices and systems over a network. Now, the network doesn't, contrary to what some people think, that network doesn't have to be the internet, but they do network and connect and share information. Some common IoT devices that you probably have in your house already, smart thermostats, right? You connect with your phone, you connect them to the internet, they connect to your systems, and you can do a lot of things with your heat and cooling. There's all sorts of things like video game consoles and smart TVs. Really, IoT kind of is this catch-all drawer in a lot of ways that almost any device that's networked that isn't able to put a antivirus type client on, right? So not a laptop, not a desktop, not a phone, right? Because you could put antivirus on a phone. But for the purpose of our conversation, think of really any other network device, because almost all of them I can think of, you can't really secure on the device. The other side of the house that we're going to talk about today, and SCADA and IoT, they've become where they kind of intermesh a little bit. SCADA, supervisory control and data acquisition, is a control system architecture comprising computers, data communications, and interfaces for high-level machines and processes. SCADA is an old protocol. It's been around for decades, that is used by a lot of what we call operational technology. So think of a car manufacturing plant, right? You can see in your head, there's like a computer and someone interfaces with the computer, and then the robot arm comes and picks up the car door and puts it on the car, and another robot arm comes and drills the bolts into it, right? That's a SCADA system. Another type of SCADA system is like, let's say drinking water, right? There's a system that runs the pump that networks back to whoever's in control of it. That pump fills up the water tower. The water tower opens and closes at a certain rate, which that data is fed back to whoever's controlling the system. The water feeds out to people. There's valves and such that can be controlled remotely. So that's SCADA, right? And SCADA has been around for decades. And it's important to know that because SCADA, the protocol, really doesn't have any security capabilities built into it, because it really predates a lot of what we do today in security. So that's the quick rundown. The other thing I wanted to show you before we get started, let's get my beautiful face off there. This is my lab environment map. It's a very simple lab. We have a firewall, right? A Checkpoint firewall. Behind it is a security management from Checkpoint, like many of you have today. And then the third thing, internal on the network, is a discovery engine. Now, what is this discovery engine? Checkpoint, we've been in the SCADA discovery business for a long time. But once Internet of Things became prevalent, the sprawl of the vast number of IoT devices out there became so great that it became a bit of a task for us to try to catalog these things. So we've actually moved to partnering with companies who are very leaders in that field, right? So the ones we partner with are Armis, if you've heard of them, Order, Clarity, Metigate, which I believe is purchased by Clarity now, or Order, one of them, sorry, and then 1 or 2 others. But we have decided to partner with IoT device scanning companies, and we can actually help you to select one of these and to try a proof of concept with them. And actually, you're going to see in this demo that the first good chunk of it is actually more of a Clarity demo than a checkpoint demo. So that's our architecture, right? And I guess the last part is outside or on a different subnet off of the gateway is this IoT network of IP cameras and variety of human interface devices and robot arms and things like that, right? So that's our environment. So now onto the demo. Okay, get rid of this. Hide these controls. Okay, so first thing I want to show you. This is Clarity, right? This is the Clarity dashboard. Again, Clarity is one of the leading IoT vendors, and we partner with them, but we partner with several of them. What Clarity does, they put a device on your network. It reaches out, it finds the traffic going around, and through the traffic, it identifies all these different IoT, SCADA, etc. devices. And you see it gives you a dashboard here of things like, what kind of events have we seen, how we're doing with our hygiene on our IoT devices, how many discovered assets we have, some of the most important things we should know about, the amount of traffic from these devices, and it actually will show you, as you see, what protocols, stuff like that. So that's kind of where it starts. I'm going to dig in a little bit here to just show you. So as an example, let's go over to visibility overview. So it picked up 645 total assets, variety of types, right? And if we click on that, we begin to see these type of assets. Now, each one of these entries is either IoT or a SCADA device. In this case, here's a programmable logic controller, which would be a SCADA device. And if we click on it, it gives you a great deal of detail about this machine, right? What's its web address, network address? What model is it? We'll talk about a zone in a second. What's its risk level right now? How important to the overall business systems is this device, right? What type of device is it? What firmware is it running? And it actually gives you some of these graphs about, where does this thing sit in terms of vulnerability, accessibility, criticality, so on and so forth. It will also show you, and this machine's been kind of quiet lately, but it will show you what other IPs and where the network traffic from that device has been going lately. And again, device information digs in, tells you a little bit more about this device. It's a little bit quiet lately. Risks and vulnerabilities, right? So we can see this is probably the most important part to see here. This device has some vulnerabilities. There's one unpatched high priority vulnerability that Clarity knows about. There's some risky category information about it. They also point out that this is an very important device in your system, right? So on and so forth. And if you scroll down, it'll actually tell you what these vulnerabilities are, right? So for example, here's the first one. The vulnerability in this type of controller occurs when the controller allowing changes. So this allows changes to file contents. And if you expand it still, it'll give you a longer description, and it'll actually give you a link, which is usually right to the vendor's. That one's an old link, but it brings you right to the vendor's site to tell you what the vulnerability is, and usually tells you where to get the new firmware to update this device. A lot of times it'll also take you to like a CVE database like HIMSS or what have you. Trying to think of what else I want to show you in here for clarity. Oh, zones. So the other thing that Clarity does is it will take your devices and it will group them by what type of device they are. So for example, we looked at those programmable logic controllers, found 6 of them. They're grouped into this zone called PLC Rockwell. There's another one called PLC Modbus. It's probably done by subnet in this case. You can change the groups and zones as you see fit. It does some automatically for you. And so it's important to see that we've begun to take these machines or these devices and group them in a way where we can now apply security to them here in Clarity. So I'm going to stop for 1 second and see if I have any questions, which I don't see any yet, and that's fine. That's fine. Okay, so go back in here, put this up here. So you're probably saying, okay, Joe, that was a very interesting Clarity demo, but what does it have to do with Checkpoint? We can take here with Checkpoint, we can ingest from Clarity, Armis, etc., that list of objects. We can ingest that group of zones, and we can apply security policies to them so that we can prevent devices reaching out on protocols they should not be doing. And it's actually very easy to do. And I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do it. I'm going to move the zoom thing. So new IoT discovery service. We will name this Clarity Discovery Service. And you will be provided, either by Clarity or by us, the info to put in here. And I actually have it written down so I can put it in here. Right here. Copy this. So our host name, 443 AAA. We test the connection. It is connected. We want to apply it to one of our security policies. I'm going to click the standard one if you have 2. A lot of customers just have 1 anyway. That object has been added. You can see right there. So we're going to hit publish now. Hit publish. And what it should begin to do in a second here is add objects from, here it goes, see, updating IoT layer. So what it's actually doing is reaching out to Clarity. It's grabbing those objects, those many assets, those zones that were created. It's also creating a policy layer for IoT. And we're going to see it in 1 second. And it's also generating automatic rules for those zones, which is really cool that you can get all this stuff done just by a couple of clicks of adding an object, right? It takes 1 more second. The other thing it's doing is it's actually going to, once it understands what devices you have, as we gather all that data from your IoT service, we're actually going to make sure, Checkpoint, that you have some of the protections specific to those devices, like IPS protections for those PLCs we saw a minute ago. Very cool stuff. So now, when we go back to the security policy, we will see, let me blow this up. Oh, I'm messing around. Here we go. Here, there's another layer called IoT, right? And when we click in here, you'll see it has auto-generated a whole bunch of rules, whole long list about the variety of zones that we pulled out of Clarity that we saw a minute ago. And for example, they have a rule for these Modbus human machine interfaces. And let's drill down into this because this is a inline layer which you may be familiar with from your own environment. But essentially, anything that is in this zone is subject to all the rules under number 2. So 2.1, 2.2 for right now. What the checkpoint has actually done is gathered from Clarity what protocols this device should be communicating over, and has created a rule to allow and log that. For right now, it has created a secondary rule that any other traffic that comes to this device falls into this second rule. And we're going to talk about that. Well, I guess I'll talk about it now. So in order to not interfere, and if you've ever done like a proof of concept with checkpoint, there's a lot of a crawl, walk, run type of approach where we a lot of times like to put things into like a detect mode. That's what this is right now. Is it's in like a detect mode, right? It's going to grab the traffic on this rule, and it's going to grab any other traffic. Now, eventually, once you feel comfortable, you're going to flip this to block, right? And only the appropriate protocol, which is TCP 502, will be able to go back and forth to this device. And so with one click, you've really very much improved the security posture of those devices. And the same thing with any of these other ones, right? So let's see, here's a PLC group. That's actually the one we were looking at. This group communicates over this protocol by definition. So eventually, once we were comfortable, we would flip this to drop, and now only this protocol will work with that. And so very quickly, we've been able to generate mostly automatically a security policy to protect our variety of IoT devices and SCADA devices. And of course, you can, this is the auto-generated rules. You can make your own manual rules based on zones, based on specific objects, right? You can choose one of those devices and go ahead and make rules as you see appropriate. The API that we're using to communicate with that discovery box will continue to update this, because that IoT controller has been added in here. So as new IoT or SCADA devices appear on your network, they will continue to be grouped in zones that are as appropriate, and they will continue to be fed into here where they can be protected, where they can be new rules can be created, so on and so forth. So that's the general idea of what I wanted to show you today. How Checkpoint can take one of these engines, and again, if you already work with Armis or Clarity or whoever, that's fine. We can work. We can integrate that with the Checkpoint. There is a small license you have to purchase. If you do not have one of those and you're interested, by all means, reach out to us, because again, we partnered with all these companies and we have subject matter experts here who can actually help guide you to which one might be more appropriate. They tend to specialize a little bit in different fields. Like one is a little bit specialized towards warehousing and manufacturing. One of the other ones is very specialized towards medical field, but the truth is that they all want to cover everything, so it's pretty close to each other. So that's the demo. I don't know if anybody has any questions. If you do, feel free to put them in the Q&A or into the chat. Either one's good. If you want to go ahead and speak your question, I think you can raise your hand and I'll unmute you. I'll give it just a minute there. Okay, I got one. Okay, so yeah, the question is, do we have to use these zones to make our rules? And the answer is no, we do not. The rules as auto-generated, right? You saw it just pop them up in the right here in the smart console. It auto-generates them by these zones. And it keeps it nice because they're groups, right? You can apply one rule to many devices that are all similar devices. But you certainly can make your own rule on individual machines or individual subnets, whatever is appropriate. Thank you. Okay, yeah, and absolutely, anytime. I hope this was a good session for you guys. So if I don't have any more questions, which is fine, I think that this is kind of a quick one. It's somewhat easy to get your head around. But if you ever have any questions or concerns around IoT, devices, IoT security, please reach out to us. We'd love to help you out and have a discussion about it.